Hello there guys, what is going on? Daniel Childs back here again. I haven't done a video in a couple of days. I've been recovering from an illness, which I think I may get again based on watching Chelsea, which is kind of how this season has gone. And I was a little bit busy last week, so didn't really make any videos on the Wolves and Real Madrid games, which was a bit of a shame. But given how both of those went and given how today went, wasn't a lot to say in terms of anything new based on this season. And reviewing this game, Chelsea 1, Brighton 2. Chelsea, another defeat, 2 defeats to Brighton, which of course you throw out the expected irony, of course, of what has taken place between both of those clubs this season. I cannot say that I am remotely surprised by the result today, or even the performance. I have to be just completely blunt about that. I think that a lot of the people I met before the game, and just the feeling in and around the stadium, was one of dread before the game even kicked off. And to be honest, the game played out like that. You know, Chelsea looked a team of individuals, looked like a team who had had 3 head coaches within 1 season, had spent a lot of money on a lot of players without a coherent plan. You know, Chelsea and Brighton, there is the antithesis, you know, in terms of what Brighton are. A well-run club. We've been through all of this. Their structure, being able to change a head coach but still keep a progressive style of play that has meant that they are well within reach of European football, and looked like a team that just were going to overwhelm Chelsea throughout the game. I think 2-1 is actually a bit of an unfair scoreline. I think it doesn't paint the full picture of a game that was very much dominated by Brighton throughout a few spells where Chelsea created some pressure, but it was so clear who the better team were. You know, I think it's going to be weird analysing until Chelsea get to that magical 40-point mark, so we kind of guarantee safety. It's going to be weird analysing the rest of this season, because in terms of Frank probably not being here beyond the end of this season, so kind of analysing player decisions is a little bit weird, because we don't know what who the next coach is going to be and what they are going to do with these set of players. But I think what rubber stamps today's result and performance and recent performances is kind of how big of a job it is, because I think culturally, I think there's a lot of problems at the club, obviously, and you know, some of those I think have been created this season by new ownership. Some of those I think are more long-standing, and I think it really, from a coaching point of view, if you're coming into this job, how big of a job you have to try and reinstill some confidence in some of these players, in being able to have the assurance that this squad is going to be cut down and trimmed down massively, and players who have been failing consistently will not be here next season, and being able to reinstall some belief within this ground, Stamford Bridge, that has become a place for disappointment, a hub for discontent. You know, that's kind of the way Stamford Bridge is now. I walk out that ground and I'm so used to the trudge home and the disappointment walking out of Stamford Bridge. And that's a very big thing that I think a new head coach is going to have to deal with and overcome. It can be overcome quickly with good results, obviously, but you know, from the character-wise, from looking at those set of players, and it has been radical change with some of the signings that have come in. But you know, I've seen 3 head coaches this season, and I've seen equally hapless performances, and I've seen performances of such a lack of resilience. And you know, these are intangible things that, you know, don't relate to the tactical side of the game, which I do think Frank Lampard was massively exposed today. I felt Chelsea was set up in a way where we were very easily bypassed in central midfield. I thought the gaps between players was bad. I thought that Brighton exploited that very well. I thought they played within the lines, particularly in the first half. I thought they got the ball out to Matoma against Trevor Chalobah. There are a few moments where Trevor Chalobah, you know, I thought put in a really good tackle, but they exploited Chelsea, and they, you know, they played inside and then got out the width, you know, and the way Brighton are able to do that. And you know, it was staggering, really, that it was only 1 goal we conceded at half time. And you know, it says so much about Chelsea and kind of the differences in productivity and value between both sets of squads, that you know, they get an injury to Ferguson, a young player who's done a lot of good in recent weeks, and then they bring on Danny Welbeck, a more experienced player, and he scores with pretty much his first opportunity. And you just see that again, and you know, you see the winning goal from Cisco, who, you know, a staggering strike, or it's a good strike, but again, I mean, I'm not going to try and sit here and tell you that Kepa doesn't have previous with this, and you know, the trend is so clear now that you do wonder why Edouard Mendy wasn't playing, and I do lack some sympathy now with Chelsea head coaches who continue to play Kepa, because you play with fire, you get burnt type thing. Kepa is what Kepa is. I don't really blame the player anymore. I start to look at the coaches and I start to say, why are you playing a player who does have these limitations, severe limitations? But again, if I'm looking at sort of the who's playing, who's not playing, I think that the two big things is, if you're a coach looking at this situation of what is there to gain coming in, and potentially how your reputation could be harmed, given how much of a basket case Chelsea does look like at the moment, what you're able to accomplish, if you're going to be given the time, if there is an appreciation that although things can be a lot better, it's not going to go back to Chelsea competing for the Premier League title next season. Will you get that patience? Will the club allow that, in terms of fans allowing that? Given how divided things are currently, how fractious, as I say, the relationship between the squad and the fans are. I think these are things that sure may not sound that important from the outside, but I think they're very important in terms of reuniting a club. And I think from the ownership side, who have a lot of egg on their face at the moment, there needs to be appreciation of what character you need to get in this exhaustive process of bringing in a new head coach. You need to bring in a head coach who is going to have the weight of character to be able to handle this dressing room and to be able to command something and have that force of character that the best Chelsea coaches have, along with a tactical plan that isn't going to mean Chelsea are going to be outplayed consistently. I think that's one of the things, Lampard has spoken very well, and I love seeing him. He's my hero, but there's no denying that he lacks the tactical sort of nous of a lot of the other coaches, which is why this is very much a brief run where Frank is probably, like he was in 2019, one of the only people to take the job, and they've got to get the next guy right. They really do. And you watch performances like this, despite how good of a team Brighton are, and it's not even mediocrity. It's below that. I mean, Chelsea are slipping towards relegation trouble, and it's very hard to see when, I kept on saying this throughout the season. I said it under Potter, I said it under Thomas Tuchel. When you have a group that can't deal with moments of adversity in a game, I know I keep on saying this, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, that is a major flaw within a football team. No matter how talented, no matter how expensive you are, if a collection of individuals cannot withstand the rough and tumble, the peaks and troughs, the ups and downs that comes with a football season, you're going to really struggle. And I think that that was an issue today, but it wasn't the case that Chelsea were dominant and then we've seen in games this season, Chelsea have good periods in games and then suddenly the opposition score, and Brighton were dominant from the first moments. I mean, it really was a case where you had the Conor Gallagher goal, which was a deflection that does Robert Sanchez. But really, other than that, in the first half, it was very much Brighton building up, having that repetition, having players, even ones that came off the bench. Remember, Brighton had to make 2 subs in the first half for injury. It says so much about the unity and the clarity of profile of player that De Zerbi makes changes and brings on players who impact the game. I believe both subs scored. I think they did, yeah. Both subs for Brighton, 2 of them scored goals. When has that happened at Chelsea? When do you see players come off the bench who add equal or even more value? The players that start often don't seem to have much of an idea. The players that come on don't seem to add much impact. I think that the criticism, Frank, of not playing Edouard Mendy, not seeing the likes of Noni Madueke, who I felt this is a perfect opportunity for him to start. David Datcha Fofana, even I know Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang obviously is a divisive figure, but again, we're watching a team that has no centre forward, and you're sat there and I'm watching a team playing high balls into either direct to the centre forward that isn't going to be there to win the ball against Lewis Dunk, or I'm seeing a cross being put in with no one going in there. It speaks to tactical incompetence. That's what it speaks to. I think it'd be naive and disingenuous for people to try and claim that started today. I think more my problem with I think the problem you could assess Lampard is that, but we got outplayed from Brighton earlier in the season as well. This is again, I think that it's very simplistic to just say we are in the mess we're in for a variety of reasons. It's not just simply the head coach has come in. I think people from the outside who like to talk about Lampard's failures as a head coach will pin this all on him. But as a club, you have three head coaches in a season. I think you get what you deserve. In truth, you get a team that looks so disorganised and lacking confidence. And I think it's a real job now to see where Chelsea are going to get points. I mean, beyond what happens on Tuesday against Real Madrid, which is, there was a lot of analysis about Real Madrid, and to me, I don't think it was that amazing in terms of the fight and the resilience. I think that Madrid looked like they were playing at second gear, and it really does concern me what's going to happen on Tuesday, particularly a home crowd, if that turns and then it becomes very, if Madrid score first and suddenly the game, they score a second, which is more than possible with the talent they have at their disposal, what that could be like inside Stamford Bridge and what that night could represent. And you just look at some of the opposition Chelsea still have to play. They still have to play Arsenal. They still have to play Newcastle, Man United, Man City. But even any club at the moment, particularly when it's at Stamford Bridge, you have such a lack of faith that the players are going to be able to respond. Really, it's not even a handful. It's we got the Borussia Dortmund game recently. There's been other occasions earlier in the season where Chelsea players have turned up, but it's been so rare that you are just kind of turning up and hoping more than anything that the players are going to respond. But there's been so little evidence this season of that happening. And I think it just reflects how massive of a job this is to turn around a ship that seems to be sinking at the moment and sinking fast. And, Lampard's a part of that. I think the players are a part of that. Todd Bowley and the new ownership are a part of that. And it's very difficult at the moment for me to give a clarified answer because it's very difficult to know what direction this club wants to go in. And, more than ever now, I think that the ownership needs to take a long, hard look at themselves and the decision-making that has happened this season and understand and grasp why it's gone so wrong, and why so much money has been spent, but such little value for that money has been reflected on the pitch. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.